Your motion to dismiss with prejudice is granted.
They believe that the ammo was not at all linked to the case and did not come from the set of Rust, so they didn't feel that they were concealing any evidence. Regardless, the defense asked the judge to just completely dismiss the case. This means that Alec cannot be recharged at all. I think he is probably especially after seeing Hannah get found guilty. Alec and the armorer on set, Hannah Gutierrez Reed, were both charged with involuntary manslaughter in January of 2023. When this prop gun fired, a real bullet hit the cinematographer Helena Hutchins and the director Joel Souza. After being rushed to the hospital, Joel did end up recovering. However, Helena passed away. 42-year-old Helena was a wife and a mother. Then in March of this year, 2024, after her trial and before she was sentenced, Hannah's lawyer filed a request for conditional discharge, or basically probation. The prosecution objected and said that Hannah had completely and totally failed to accept responsibility for her actions. Hannah basically just pleaded with the judge.
I beg you, please don't give me more time. The jury has found me in part at fault for this god-awful tragedy, but that doesn't make me a monster. That makes me human.
However, the judge was not super feeling sorry for Hannah.
Did she have enough time to load the weapon safely? Plenty. Did she check what she was loading? No. Why? Well, in her own words, most recently, in her jailhouse calls, she didn't need to be shaking the dummies all the time. You were the armorer, the one that stood between a safe weapon and a weapon that could kill someone.
Hannah was ultimately sentenced to 18 months in prison, the maximum sentence for what she could get, which, in all honesty, in just my very unprofessional opinion, was nothing. Was a chip off the old block, was a blip in time for what happened, for Helena losing her life, for her son losing his mother. And she's just this is a woman that just goes to work with her camera. That's it. Nobody was expecting it. Her husband and the rest of the family and everybody that loved her and everybody else that it was just such a huge deal for something that could have been avoided. Nevertheless, Alec did end up being charged with a new involuntary manslaughter charge in January of this year, 2024. Now, Alec and his lawyers say that Alec didn't actually pull the trigger and said that Alec had no reason to believe that it was loaded with a live round because he relied on the professionals that he worked with who assured him that there were no live rounds. Alec at this time was facing 18 months himself in prison if he was convicted. Now, there's been a lot of debate on him saying he didn't pull the trigger and people saying, well, the triggers, they don't just pull themselves. But nevertheless, his trial began on July 10th of this year. Opening statements were given and the witnesses started testifying. Hannah herself was expected to testify against Alec as well, and I was very curious of how that was going to go. However, during day 2 of the trial, Alec's lawyer was cross-examining the sheriff's office crime scene technician when he asked whether a Good Samaritan had come to investigators with unrecovered ammo earlier this year. The crime scene technician, Marissa, she said yes, that did happen. The sheriff's office was actually given rounds by a man named Troy, who is a former police officer and a friend of Thel Reed, Hannah's stepfather. But not only that, the lead investigator did not enter this in new evidence under the same case number, and the prosecutor did not reveal this new evidence to the defense. So it only became known when the crime scene technician was literally on the stand during Alec's trial. That, along with body cam footage of investigators literally accepting this evidence from Troy. The prosecutor said that she had never seen the body cam footage until that very day, which is a very big deal. So they're literally in trial and there's this huge piece of evidence that just seemingly falls and comes out of nowhere. It also just so happened the day that Troy dropped these rounds off was the same day that Hannah was convicted at her trial. Now, maybe it was just a coinky-dink and maybe not. Given this information, Alec's lawyers claimed that the prosecution had concealed this evidence and that this evidence may have been linked to the incident on the set of Rust. Now, while watching the trial, you could kind of tell that this was a big moment. There was a lot of whispering going on between Alec's lawyers and between Alec and his wife. That's basically what happened in this, or the defense was saying that the prosecution literally hid exculpatory evidence. By the end of the day, the judge did in fact side with the defense and decided to dismiss the charges with prejudice.
The sanction of dismissal is the only warranted remedy. The jury has been sworn, jeopardy has attached, and a mistrial would not be based upon manifest necessity.
Dismiss him, Judge. Dismiss him.
Go ahead.
Thank you all for your help.
Once court was adjourned, Prosecutor Carey gave a brief statement.
I understand that the court disagrees with me, and I respect the court's decision. There is absolutely no evidence that any of that ammunition is related to the incident involving Ms. Hutchins.
We also found out later that day that Special Prosecutor Erlinda had actually recused herself from the case.
I left because I learned about this evidence when the public learned about it yesterday, late afternoon. Our job is to ensure transparency and to ensure that the defendant has everything that the prosecution has gathered. What they do with it, that's up to them.
This prosecutor was the fourth prosecutor to have either quit or step down. Now, it's not totally clear if this dismissal will affect Hannah's conviction or appeal process. Some legal analysts think that it will. Some think that it won't. Hannah's lawyer said that she planned to file a motion for her release. So this isn't just somebody messing up. Like, it can have huge ripple effects. Now, although Alec's legal case was dismissed, he does still face some legal lawsuits, which is to be expected. I don't know all the evidence that they had against him. I don't know how that worked with him. I wanted to watch the trial. However, I definitely felt like Hannah should have been held responsible for sure. And I also think that if you're going to use real firearms on set, everybody should have a certain amount of firearm training. It's interesting because Alec has been a person that has spoken out very vocally about how he is against those types of weapons. Maybe if he would have had that firearm training, maybe it would have been different, but I don't know. I think that that is something that should be implemented, and I think that 18 months for Hannah, she should really be grateful because somebody lost their life. Thank y'all so much for being here, and I'll see y'all in the next video. Bye!